Paul Sykes, welcome to Harlequins Live. Thank you for letting me on what I assume is your pride and joy.
My baby, yeah.
What am I stood on here? Is it perennium ryegrass?
That's perennial ryegrass.
Okay.
Lowly perenne, and this is Poa annua. That's why England's a green and pleasant land. That's why everywhere's green, but it's actually a weed grass, and it weakens this and causes problems. So that's why we're trying to get rid of this and have more of this.
So is that white line quite literally the difference between the good stuff and the bad stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, it's roughly where my feet are. That's the rye, and that's Poa.
Actually, looking at it, I can see the difference.
I was just about to say, luckily for me, I can see and you can't, but you're learning quick. That's good. I like it. That's good.
It is getting a bit dark. I'm sure if it was daylight, I'd be able to see. Talk to me about preparation. I remember coming here in the summer when rugby was about to restart and we had glorious sunshine. Pitch looked fantastic. The pitch looks fantastic now. Is it more difficult this time of year?
Oh yeah.
Then? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming we're having a bit of a COVID talk as well, and how that affects us, and it's massively affected us because it's a winter sport. So what I'm trying to do is work with a living plant, and almost everything that's living goes into status around 5 degrees or low, and we're getting there now. We had a bit of a cold snap last night. So I tried to get all the work done during the summer, get as many blades, in simple terms, as many blades of grass out there as possible for the boys to kick out and repair it again when it starts growing. So now I've got a bit of a challenge because we're just about to start the season, and I had to get the rest of the last season's games in. And normally when I've got downtime and I'm doing a good long preparation, getting rid of all the Poa annua and starting a new baby. We've had to mix it up this year and adapt and overcome and work on the fly. And thank you for your comments, because the reason we have done a renovation and it's somewhere in the middle, so it's been difficult. So now I've got the challenge now of cramming all those matches into a much shorter period of time when the grass doesn't grow. So I hope this is looking like this next year, but I'm not sure by May.
Well, because you've had a 6-day turnaround, because we had the women's game last week where it hammered it down for the whole time. It's looking, well, we're stood in the rain now. It's looking like we're going to get similar this evening. Do those playing conditions, if you get 80 minutes of real scrutiny, heavy studs, hard scrummaging, is that going to make your job much more difficult for the weeks and months to come?
Yes and no. It really does depend on all how it lies and all how it happens at the time. The best analogy, I'm an analogy guy, so the best analogy I come up with is when you're walking on the beach. If you're walking or running, say, in the soft sand up at the top, that's hard work, isn't it? Because it's soft and it moves all the way. If you're walking in the sea, same thing, it's too wet and it moves. If you walk right on the line where the tide is, it's very firm because the water helps make it firm. So it really just, this is due to stop any time, and I'm really hoping it will, because then it will actually aid me. It will hold the root zone underneath together. If it then starts raining very heavily right now, that'll be a completely different situation. So really, I always say this and it annoys some of my bosses, but I've only got one boss really, and I've got to work on whatever's going on there. It's hard for me to plan and explain to people what I'm going to do. I've got to adapt very quickly and change very quickly, but it helps by being here 12 years and knowing exactly what's going on under there.
Annoyingly, that one doesn't pay the mortgage, which is incredibly frustrating. So let's talk about the pitch in itself then. In terms of the grass that's out here and this awful stuff that's going to be disappearing soon enough, how much of an input do you have in terms of the selection of ultimately the turf and the grass that is on that pitch that Harlequins play on every week?
Everything.
Okay.
It's one of the few things that I have complete control of in my life, and I'm very happy to be. Let's go back to ryegrass. Why do we use ryegrass?
Yeah.
Ryegrass has got very thick cell walls because animals have been chewing it and using it as a food crop for years. We found small small versions that grow up in the mountains in New Zealand that don't get so much eaten, but the weather makes them dense, so we crossbreed them to take the coarseness out of the animal feed, but then we still end up with a very fine, beautiful grass that can take the wear. So it's such a science these days, you know. So I talk very closely to my seed reps. We have we're very saddles grounds, and we have a book of seed that we all clamber to buy every year, and it's got all the best species that all these mad people like me are testing under crazy conditions, and then we find the one that can take the most wear, the most cold, that stays good colour in when it's dormant. There's lots of factors. How well the roots. You see, one thing we haven't talked about is roots. Most of what I'm doing out here is actually managing what's underneath, not really what's up above. You know, because I'm trying to get the carbohydrate reserves in there so that it can take all the abuse. You could think of carbohydrate reserves in similar terms as fat and humans. You know, it keeps our energy levels reserved. So I don't want to ever dip into that. that's why I do such intense work. So
this time of year, I do a lot of my carbohydrate reserves as well.
I think especially Christmas.
Do you have a good relationship with other groundsmen there, whether it's in Premiership Rugby, whether it's in football or cricket or golf or any of these other sports where the ground is the be-all and end-all?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very tight industry, and we've all been to the same colleges, we've all had the same jobs here, there. We all know who's going to what job and everything else. But, you know, don't want to do too much of a name drop, but I was speaking to the head groundsman of Spurs the other night, and he just called me up. How you doing? And we're having a chat. And I've got moss around here. Do you know a new product? Because I was doing my head in, and we're very sad people, to be fair. But we all look after each other. And it's a nice thing. You know, there's not. I like that. There doesn't have to be the elitism of, oh, I'm not going to speak to the rugby groundsman. We're all the same, and we all help each other out, and it's a wonderful feeling.
I could talk to you all day. Will you promise to come back on the show so we can get deeper into this?
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
This is part one of
the Grass Chronicles. What about that?
The Grass Chronicles, Volume 1. Sykesy, mate, thank you so much for that chat.
Love to shake your hand, but we can't.
Go for one of those from a distance. Cheers.
Thanks, buddy.